centered, mono, dry, like all that kind of stuff is because when you're adding reverbs to and delays to bass stuff, it starts getting in the way of like kicks and like all this other stuff that you need space for. So I would keep these dry
Okay.
and add the space, like add the delays and reverbs and stuff like that to the sounds that are sitting more like in the mids and highs versus the low end stuff. Because that's gonna give you more of like a pyramid kind of like sound stereo. If you notice, like, so if when I go like this, a pyramid, right? Everything that's on the bottom in this section is bass and kick, and you
Mhm.
want to keep that down the middle, and everything that's up top up here, that's the kind of stuff you can have more like spread out, like moving around in your headphones, and
Okay.
it makes more sense that way. So if we
So like
kind
all of the drums.
well, the drums are kind of mids highs, but drums can have reverb because they have more high-end information in them. They don't get so much in the way of like the bass. And usually when you think about like a drummer, right? When you think about a drummer playing in a room, you get that room ambience that makes it sound like it's natural, like it's part of a space. So you can do that same kind of stuff to the drum group, like on a clap. If you have a clap sound, you can add a little bit of reverb to it to create a space. Not that much, but and usually like that, those types of reverbs for those sounds, they're going to be short. So the decay right here, this is like the time length. This is like how long the reverb is. You see
$2.5.
it says right there, this is for diffusion network. It's the initial, so it's how long the reverb is, how big the room is. So you can shorten this to make it sound a little smaller. I'll make it sound drastic so you can hear. See how it sounds like a smaller room?
Hmm.
And this sounds like a bigger room.
Yeah.
So you don't really want that. For drums, you kind of want like a really barely noticeable, like small room type of sound. And that's a big difference from that to this. Sounds very dry.
Hmm.
This gives it like a little bit of vibe.
Yes.
Okay, so yeah, so keeping the basses just dry, this is I think the way to go. Now I notice you have two basses here, but they sound very similar. What was the reason for that?
Well, I put the one that you're on now as like a sub bass. So I
Mm-hmm.
lowered it down all the way down and I put it, if I recall, I think I put it at like a -1 octave to like change it up a little bit.
Okay, so we got this one being negative. Okay,
Oh,
so you so you
-4.
you you brought it down in the pitch, and then on this one you have this one you kept normal,
Hmm.
and then okay, I see what you're saying. But so you were trying to layer this one underneath in a different pitch for what to add more what
Like a little bit more punchier, like end
like
to the
add
actual
more
bit.
like add more beef to it, kind of.
Yeah.
Okay, because we can talk about how to do that. Because right here, if you think about it, essentially what you did is you layered one instrument that's the same on another channel, but you slightly change the pitch of it. So think of it if you did that with a singer, right? If you got a singer singing this whole thing and then you duplicated that channel underneath, but you move the pitch a little bit, they're gonna kind of clash a little bit because they're doing the same thing. They're filling up the same frequency.
I got you.
So I see what you were trying to do, but we can find a better way to do that. So instead of just duplicating the bass and changing the pitch, because you're gonna throw the whole like melodic scale and content off like that, they're just clashing with each other. You see, they kind of sound almost like they're doubled, but like,
Yeah, it's like yeah, I see what you
yeah.
mean.
So if you want to add more bass or more low end so it sounds punchier, you can kind of get rid of this like high end stuff to really just focus in on that. See, it gets more subby there. This brings in more of that click, which if you want a
Mm.
little bit of that, you can leave it, but I would just focus it in more on like this low mid sub range, somewhere in there. And then you can use the saturator like you have here. This is good. Or you can use something like There's this other one that does this similar thing called the roar. And this is essentially this like a beefed up saturator, but I'll show you what the cool thing with this one. So with this one, you have a little drive knob, and as soon as you start driving this, you kind of start distorting it, but like in a good way, and it adds more weight. So look, I'll start doing this. So I'll start to add
Mm.
drive, but
It
then
like amplifies it.
it amplifies it, and then because it's adding drive is also getting louder, so I have to turn the overall volume down. So I'll go to the output and just bring it down a little bit. But now you have all this like, check this out. You see that's really, really distorted, but I just want you to see the difference. So if we just add a little bit of that, now it gets really fat, dirty, and then we can bring the output down a little bit. So we could see the level right here. Okay, so let's bring a little bit of that level back.
And this is
So
for the main sub.
this is for the baseline, the main baseline. Yeah.
Okay, okay.
I turned this one off because you're not going to need this secondary one anymore.
Okay, so you could just erase it.
Yeah, let me erase that one. And then so now that we have this beefed up sub, look at how it sounds with the kick. You see you got all that weight now.
Yeah, that sounds so much better.
And then we don't need the saturator on there because we have this one there. And then what we can do is
I want to learn how to like get better at the compressor part.
this is the side chain. This is important. You definitely want to have this with the kick, but what I would do is you got to make sure that you actually have the kick signal coming into this so that it actually ducks on the kick. So you see where it says external, you can set the source, and in the source, you can set it to be the kick. So
Mm,
now it's ducking every time the kick is hitting. See with and without. It's very subtle, but it's like,
I know there's night and day difference. You could just tell. It like fits in those pockets that's
yep.
like clashing in a sense.
This I would watch out with too. So basically with this, if you want to make something mono, I would just hit the mono button. I wouldn't do the bass mono. In some instances, you can mess around with that, but so what I read was whenever you're splitting frequencies like this or EQing things that are like low end sub, you think by hitting bass mono, you're only monoing the really, really low end sub, but you're also causing like a little spike at that point where it's like crossing over. So it's a little complicated to explain, but if you just focus on bass low end wanting to be mono, I would always use this feature, the mono, over the bass mono one. So
Is that strictly for like bass lines?
for bass or kicks or things that you want to keep down the middle centered where the left and right should be like equal and like it doesn't
Okay.
need any like stereo, like super wide. So usually it's like kicks and basses.
Mm.
And this is
And
and this goes into that theory that we talked about for the pyramid kind of thing, the upside down pyramid, the V-shaped thing. So if we want to keep the bass, kick, mono, all that stuff down the middle, it's going to be down here in the center.
so since you have it on the low end group, right? Because you know how you have like each like group and then you have like the channels under that group.
Mm-hmm.
You have, I remember when you did it on you put a utility there. So do you automatically click the utility?
I just have utility on group channels by default. You could also do it on the group, like you could just go here and hit that too. I just like to do it individually on the kick and bass so that I know
Okay,
for sure like I have a little bit more control. It's just like peace of mind so I don't
I got
forget.
you.
But
Okay.
you could also do it in this stage too. I just deleted off of there, but so in this case, if we look at the kick, we could see the kick I would also put into this mono setting. And then
And
in this case, the kick, you don't need to have this compressor sidechain on there because the kick is not being compressed or sidechained. It's only the bass line that it's reacting to the kick. So that's why we put the side chain on the bass channel.
Tone, compressor, compressor, kick, replacement.
Yeah, so now that we have that there. And so on the kick channel, this is cool. This is cool too. I mean, you can do this. The only problem is here you have one individual kick for every little piece. So here, this is really easy to, this
To
is really,
consolidate.
yeah, well, this is really easy. You see what happens when you try to move it around. So since you have all these little individual little hits, this is an opportunity. I don't know how many hits are here, but let's just say you have one here. There's four times however amount this length is. That's how many opportunities you have to create an error if you need to move things around. So usually stuff like this is like a workflow hack. Like you want to try to make things as like standardized and like simplified as possible so that you can eliminate rooms for error. So if you zoom in and look at this, right? There's a chance that when you move these kicks around, when you're trying to select all of them, maybe you drop it in like this in one spot. So now you created a part where your kick is not coming in right on the downbeat where you need it to. So how do we fix that? We look at, remember I think I showed you this one last time where I added in a sampler track. And then instead of having this one individual hit copied over and over like this, all we do is we take one of these guys and I just bring it down to the sampler, right? So now I just have one kick here, and then I just create the little MIDI part to do the kick pattern, which is just the four on the floor. You know what I'm saying? Just a simple, let me change this to
Like on number 33 at 49, you see how there's like one that doesn't have it, or it's like a
mhm.
double beat.
You
Like,
can you can do that. You can do that with this. So look, I'll just make a one bar little MIDI clip like this. So now I have a little clip that has four kicks in it, right? So what I do is I can either duplicate this all the way to the end, or I could just do little sections of 8 bar loops like this, duplicate that, and then in these sections where you have those, look how easy it is. And let's say you want to do this little thing you have here.
mhm.
But you just have a little bit more control and a little bit more precise if you do it this way versus having all those little audio hits because it's easier to make a mistake while you're dragging that stuff, right? So now this is exactly the same. And I could just carry over all these same plugins that I have that you used on here. I'll just drag them over to this channel and just drop them in and we'll do a compare just to make sure we're good. 3. Make sure we're up here.
I was gonna say that on the K channel, I know the
Hmm.
utility was down on the gain.
Yeah, it was a little bit down. That's fine.
Okay.
You brought it down by 7. That's cool. But you can see here in the levels, they're exactly the same.
Hmm.
So what I do is now I'm gonna just delete this first one. And now this is way easier when you have your kick like this because you have it on a sampler channel and you have the sequence right here. You have the MIDI part that's playing the kick right there. You don't need to do anything else with that. So let's just say you're working through the track and you're like, damn, I kind of want to change the kick. You can literally just go to any kick sample, drop it in, and that's all you have to do. But imagine if you had to replace the kick on the above the one you had before, you got to redo all those little hits over and over again.
That makes sense.
So this makes it super easy. So this channel is good to go. So we have the kick with the bass right there. So to me, the kick and bass, they sound good now. Now this is working together. We fixed the issue with the low end we were talking about. We got it in mono. We added this. We got the side chain, EQ'd it nicely. Kick is good, so that part's good. So now we can look at drums, right? So here's where like, we talked about like sound selection type of stuff comes in. So you got claps, you got hats, you got all this kind of stuff. So I would loop this in the section where you have everything playing just to get an idea of what's going on. So like somewhere in here. Yeah, so you got claps. You don't need this sidechain on there either. You don't need the limiter on there. So in this case, this is cool. This clap is super clean, simple. Um, the order of the plugins that you put on the channels is important too. Like sometimes things that you put before, they make a difference if you put them after or before. So you got to pay attention to that. So when we talk about things that add saturation, color, drive, all those things, they're adding more frequencies. So if you're doing a low cut, but then you're adding all these frequencies back right after, it's kind of working against what you're trying to do. So in this case, I would put the saturator before the EQ, and then the EQ is cleaning up the stuff that you don't want from this effect. So if we turn the EQs off from here, we can see, right? So the saturator is adding its thing, and then we're just using this EQ to clean it up, and then we don't need this one anymore because we already have this one here. That's
So like
really it.
for each channel, right? Like obviously for the kick and bass line, you're compressing, so you're like side chaining and all of that stuff. So what do you use? What plugins do you use for the drum racks?
So what do you mean for like for what type of effect?
So like for instance, like the clap, you only put saturated and you EQ8. So for like your hi-hats and stuff like that, is it all the same like a saturated and EQ, or are you adding like different stuff to different?
I think it just depends on the sound, like depending on what I'm after, right? So if I have a hi-hat and it sounds good to me, I mean, usually drum sounds, it shouldn't need a lot of processing. Like you should just be able to like do some basic EQing and it should be good to go. But let's just say if you wanted to, yeah, I mean, a saturator is a good one, delay, reverb, like simple things, but you don't necessarily have to use a side chain like this compressor. You don't have to have this on every channel. I'll show you if you want a side chain and also a limiter. You don't need to have a limiter on every channel. It's mostly EQs, saturator if it needs it. Um, but that's basically it. So in this case, we have this hat, right? Yeah, there's not really much that you would need for that. I mean, you could go crazy. Like you could add an overdrive. If you want, if it was a little weak and you were like, damn, I just want to add more bite to this, you can add like an overdrive and just focus in on this real high end frequency. You see the difference between that and this?
Oh yeah. Does overdrive, are you able to?
Overdrive is like a distortion plugin, but it just works really cool because you can kind of select what frequency you want it to distort on. So like if you want to distort the low end of it, you go down here. If you want the high end, you distort more up here. And it's
Mm,
just like a really simple, like straightforward effect, and you can really crush things, like make it sound crazy. So you can make it really go. You can make it really go crazy. So I just try to like you can focus in on the frequency and then you can use the dry wet to just kind of blend in a little bit of that signal to it.
are you are you able to use the overdrive for bass lines?
You can, but remember, it's anything that adds saturation, overdrive, distortion, you're adding more frequencies. So when you're trying to keep something really sub and like contained in that area, adding something like an overdrive is going to create more frequencies higher above. So like, I'll give you an example. If we just throw this one up here on this bass, right? So check it out. If I start to add distortion,
Mm,
see, you start to add those higher like mid-range frequencies because it's distorting all that stuff and it's adding more frequency. But let's just say if you wanted a little bit of that blended in, you could go crazy, distort it, and then just sneak in like 1, 2%. You see how it's just adding a little bit there?
yeah.
See, so things like that. There's another plugin called Erosion. This one is also cool too. It just helps add like a little bit of this high end like sizzle to sound. You see, it just adds this little like tiny little hiss to it. I don't know if you can hear that.
Yeah,
Check it
yeah.
out. Check it out. On, off, and then on.
It's like real subtle.
Yeah,
And like
but if
people add that to their
oh yeah, bro, because it helps. It kind of creates like an analog sound. Like if it like when you record like analog things, and you sometimes in the lines you get these little hisses and like dirt, and that's what kind of makes it sound a little bit more alive. So having something like this and just blending in like a very little amount, it helps cut through. But so we have something like that. So on the drums. So really on the drums, like I was saying, like before, it's like filling in those gaps, like finding your claps, hi-hats, loops, percussions, like all that stuff, and then making space for each of them, right? So you have a clap here. So what I would do first is go through each of these channels and figure out what you got on there. I think that doesn't potentially need to be there. So it looks like you got the EQs, which are all good. We got rid of the ones that had the limiter on them because you don't need that. Yeah. And then it's figuring out everything is about balance, right? So if I look at this and I play this whole group, let's say I had this, like what's jumping out at you right there,
their clap.
right? So this is what we want to try to do is like making sure each thing in relation to each other is balanced out. Is there anything right now, like as we listen to this group, is there anything that sounds like it's kind of louder than the rest of the stuff? I can hear a few things.
Definitely one of the hi-hats, which
Yeah, this
it might be the flow fat perk.
this one right here.
Yeah.
That's the bongo. Maybe it's a different one. Maybe this one is pretty decent. Let's see. For me, what I hear is maybe some of the bongo loops are a little bit loud. Yeah, like these guys.
We're gonna bring those over.
It might it might not even be so much that they're louder. They do sound a little bit loud, but also I can hear something with the shuffles or the hits that are like clashing against each other. Yeah, if you look in here, you see some of these hits aren't right on the beat, especially like this hit. You see how this
Mhm.
one's coming after this one?
Yeah.
So whenever these are playing, they kind of sound like they're like, how like when you're mixing and it's a little offbeat,
hmm
it kind of has that effect on it. So we gotta listen to that to see. Oh yeah, I also see if you right click on anything that has a red dot and you click show automation, it's gonna show you where it's being automated. So in this case, I think this maybe was left over from something you had. So I would just delete that just to make sure it's not doing anything to your channel. Yeah, so right here. Yeah, so this loop sounds really, really dope. I dig it. I would just try to tighten it up so that it kind of works well with this guy above. And one way you could tell is if you kind of zoom into this section. So it looks like basically this loop is the same thing right here. Like this half is the same as this half. So I'm just gonna loop this section. And what we can do is if you right click in this section that you have highlighted on any loop, if you do this, like you go into any percussion loop and you right click and you hit what is it? Oh shit, it's not popping up right there. If you just select this and you right click on these little you right click on any of these little transient markers up here,
Mhm.
you see you get a little setting that pops up that says quantize. And what that does is it's going to take all those little hits and move them right on the grid. You see how they just moved? Did you catch that?
Mhm. No, I didn't.
Here, look, check. Let me undo it. Look at the wave up top. See how it moves?
Oh yeah.
You saw that? So
Mhm, mhm.
if I do that again, I'll just right click on any of these right here and I'll hit quantize and it quantizes all of those hits. So now when we play this together,
Yeah, it like goes with it now. It's so much better.
yeah,
How are you able to do two single channels at one time?
you hit the control key and you select it. So let's say I want to do this one, I'll hit solo, and then on this one, I'll hit control solo and it'll select it.
Okay. Right.
Yeah, so now that this one's corrected, I wanna copy this over to the rest of them to make sure that all these are corrected. And then make sure that this one is corrected over here.
So now that because you did that on one part, right? On the part that
Hmm.
you're looping, is that for all of the, or you have to do that like one by one?
Well, this one I did it to one, and then I just copied it over to all these the rest of them.
Oh, okay, okay.
I copied it over to all the rest of these guys.
So you did it on the first one, I assume, right?
I did it on this one, and then I just duplicated it over here, and I was like, all right, copy,
Okay,
duplicate, and I just made sure that they were all the same.
I got you.
Now this is on beat. But so this is something that might not be as obvious to you as you're listening to in the beginning, but this is something that I could hear because I was hearing the way these hits were playing off each other, that they weren't really, they were like just a little bit off, but now they're good. So we have drums. So here's where so it sounds like you have most of the sounds there, and I can hear you got the samples with the melodic stuff. So what I would do is focus in on it. Kind of sucks you deleted the reference track because we could have followed whatever you were following before.
I don't know. I don't know if it's because you oh, that's weird. I don't know why the reference track didn't have it.
Well, actually, it doesn't matter because look, we could just do this. What I would do is I would almost start this all over again. So I would take this section, um, I would take this whole section right here and basically just start over and do this. It's easier to remove, so it's easier to remove from from these blocks than having to like, so if you have
Like
these
put
all filled
everything.
in, it's easier to just take away, So we just kind of bring this out to like 6 minutes. And then what we can do is kind of plan out like a little arrangement, So we don't have a reference track, but I'm just going to kind of do this the easy way to show you. So remember, we can use the auto filter, the little cutoff thing to kind of help us guide where we're at. So usually the first 30-second intro will have the bass out. Then the bass comes in for another 30 seconds. And then usually at the 1 minute point is where we have like the main kind of beef of the track start dropping in. By then you're probably mixing into the new track or something.
Mhm.
So we'll just make maybe a little breakdown right here, let it go for another minute, and then maybe we do the main breakdown here, and then we take the bass out at the last 30 seconds. So basically from 161 to 193 is like the outro. So this is kind of a standard little arrangement that usually works. You have a 30-second first breakdown, 1 minute main breakdown, and then for a 6 minute track. And then you can do these little mini ones, obviously, where like you take it out for like two kicks, halfway through. So you can do that, that,
Excuse me.
that, that. See? So that's kind of a standard little thing. So we go here.
How are you pressing those without going to the S?
Um, I'm using the S key. So like anything that you select, like let's say I go to this clap and I hit S, it just solos it.
Okay.
If I go right here and I click S, solo it. Yeah,
Yes.
that saves you time without having to go through the S
To
key.
each channel. Yeah, hell yeah.
Yeah, it's really dope, man. Those little the shortcuts are your friends, bro. I would just Google like Ableton 12 shortcuts for Windows, and I would like start getting familiar with all those, bro, because there's so many that will save you time. Like the ones that we use all the time are like the tab key to open the mixer, you know that. Then you got the A key to enable the automation, the S key to solo anything. If you want to create a new audio track, Control T creates a new audio track. If you want to create a MIDI track, Control Shift T creates a new MIDI track. All these little shortcuts help. Like if you want to get to the browser really quickly, Control F gets you to the browser so you can type in EQ, whatever. That opens it. So let's say the browser's closed like this and you're working on the track and you hit Command F, it'll open that up right away. And you can type in filter and the auto filter's right there. Boom. So all these little shortcuts, they save you time. So I would Google those just so you have like a list and you can see like, okay, this one, this one, this one. Because, just when you're in the flow of this, you just want to get things quick, quick,
Yeah.
So you saw what I'm doing, right? I just mapped out kind of like where the bass is getting cut off. So I have an idea now, like, okay, this is where my main breakdown is. By just looking at the automation, I could see. So like I already know on this 30-second intro, maybe I don't want to have all these perk sounds in there. And I know I don't want to have these little, or maybe you do, but you can change this later, but maybe these little vocal hits don't start coming until like the 1 minute mark, right? So maybe they don't start coming until like right there. So I'm going to delete all of them in the early on. Right? So maybe you can have this. See, and then these guys, this is cool, but this is going to be coming in a little after, I feel like. So this you could just basically select all
Mhm.
and maybe just start moving it in like somewhere in here, maybe. Yeah. Okay, so this could be like a little fill. So this could be under effects, maybe. Right. So you just kind of start listening through to figure out like where things are happening. And since, like I said, we mapped out pretty much the skeleton of where the base is and all this stuff, you already know, well, cool. I'm gonna try to figure out what is this sound? Okay, this is like the main thing. So we're gonna talk about these two in a minute because we're gonna talk about how you can introduce these two main sounds and kind of like bring them in and out and have them flowing through the track. But in the meantime, the vocal, this one's going to be kind of important because this is the one we want to figure out. So there's a lot of vocal stuff here that you can play with. I'm going to just set these to the side for a second and just focus on these two initial like intro little kind of hits. Usually like right before you get to the next section, like right before the minute or something, these sound cool when you drop in these little vocals. And then you go into like the next cycle. So like if you're getting, actually, these are a little bit off time. So I'm gonna, yeah, you see that that kind of works in those sections where you're like, you start off here, you get to the end of the cycle, and you have these little like bits where it turns around and gets you to the next section. So maybe we have this one there, and then maybe we have this one over here right before you get to that breakdown part. Um, those can probably come in right there, so I'm gonna leave them in there. And then maybe these little vocal things can come in the breakdown.
Or
And
you
then
could probably put it on the second part, or no?
what's that?
You could probably put it like on this on the first drop, the initial drop,
On
like
the 17?
after the build up. So 65.
Yeah, it could come in there, or it could be, it's fine if it comes in at around a minute, but you're gonna see right now because there's a way that you can bring it in where it just doesn't come in like so sudden like that. You can have a filter on it, have it kind of growing into the track so it doesn't come in so abruptly. But I was trying to focus in on these little vocal hits, like where they're coming in, because obviously you want to have the main part of the vocal. Uh, yeah, you want to have like these little chunks that are like main pieces. This is where you would kind of have it in the main. Right? So it's like these little changes, these little things that you do where you start getting into the thing. So you have this. Maybe you're right. On the 65, it might sound good if that comes in now. Yeah, so you start mapping out like where you feel these things should be coming in, right? I'm just kind of going off feeling, but then you know that you have all these little bits that help you fill in the other sections. So you can come here, do the same little fill in you had over there. Um,
So each one of those like little vocals, they were like different parts of the song. You know what I mean? So
exactly.
okay.
Yeah, exactly. So you can move these to wherever you feel like, but what I would concentrate on is having the main ones be like in the main section of the track. So like obviously if this is like where the main bit is, I would lock these into where the breakdown is and then start to work out from that. Because
Yeah.
these little parts are easy to fill in, like where you need these little gaps and stuff. But like
Mhm.
putting the main part in the right section, that's where you kind of want to focus. Like,
Yeah. I haven't like counted it out. So it's not like on time.
Yeah, this is where you'll want to work out like where that vocal is, but then this is your opportunity to kind of make that magic happen in the breakdown where like what you want to do.
But if I have to, I go all out with no fight. Yeah, that's right, cause I survive math fights. And for my peeps, I truly care. Cause without some of them, I wouldn't be here. And they all the suckers be like playing themselves to have massive shit.
Yeah, so this would be a part where you have the opportunity here to play with the elements to like really create that tension, obviously like letting that vocal shine, letting it do its thing, but also like maybe do some type of trick with it, like I noticed here you did a similar thing that we did talked about for the bass where you have
Mhm.
this one pitched in a different way, but this sounds kind of weird together. You see what I'm saying? Because they're in a different, so I would just eliminate this one and keep this main one. Maybe this one is worth doing that stuff we talked about earlier where you add like an overdrive to really like beef that sound up a little bit since it's been ripped and recorded off of some other shit. See? You know what I'm saying? If you add that, you add the erosion thing to it, maybe just to get a little bit of noise in there. Make it sound kind of like it's a vinyl. Obviously, since we added all those frequencies with these plugins, we want to maybe on this one, it's worth adding in like a little echo or like delay or something. So you can have like a little delay on that. Maybe it's a little shorter. But even if you threw on like a auto filter over that, this is what I was saying. You can create changes with this. You can add in all those movements throughout the track. So like right here, you can have it, you can have it come in right there. And then once it gets to like over here, it builds back up. Right. So you notice here, I took the drums out in that section. So this is good to do throughout the track, like A and B stuff, bring stuff in and out. It doesn't all have to be like straight on like this. So maybe in the breakdown, the drums come out. This way it has more impact when it drops. But then also here in the intro, I took out some of these perk loops. So maybe like the shaker doesn't have to come in at the 1 minute. It can come in like after it could come in on the drop basically. So all these elements individually, you can go through to see which one you want to come in where. So like maybe this one doesn't come in until
How did you gray out the
I just hit
like
0. So if you click on any clip and hit 0, it just deactivates it.
uh,
Telling you, bro, it's the shortcuts.
for real?
And the reason you could delete it too, but the reason I don't delete it is because it's so easy to just go back and say, oh, never mind, I do want to keep it there and just hit 0 again and it's on, because you could just turn
Mhm.
it on and off like this. Right? So you start figuring out what parts and pieces you want to come in where, and then it makes it a lot easier to figure out what's going on in the track. So maybe in the outro, you're not going to have the shaker. Maybe you don't have all these perks at the same time. Maybe you get rid of this one. You start kind of mapping out all these things. And then obviously here you see I use the automation to use the filter to like bring it in and out. So that's the movement you want to have on some of these sounds. Like, and you can also stack different plugins. So like if I go to audio effects here on the left and I click on device, you see how Ableton gives you a category of what type of device you want to do. So if I audio effect and let's say performance DJ, so maybe I want to have something with like maybe I want to use something like Dawn Shimmers. I have no idea what that is, but let's just drop it in here to see. So if we drop that little plugin in here, let's just see what that does. Oh, that's sick, right? It creates
Yeah.
this crazy ass. Okay, so that gives me an idea, right? You can have this coming into this like drop over here at the end, just a little bit, and then it just cuts out.
But if I have to, I go all out with nobody. Yeah, that's right, cause I survive mad fights. And for my peeps, I truly care. Cause without some of them, I wouldn't be here. But they all know how I feel. The suckers be like playing themselves to have mass appeal. Yeah. But if I have,
You could figure out like what you could do there, but this is like kind of the possibilities there are endless, really. Like if you have this, you can make this do whatever.
do I go all, but if I have, out with, out, out,
You could do something like this.
have mass appeal. Yeah. Bow.
It's really whatever you want to do. But you see how that little effect just added this like tension kind of mysterious thing in the back?
Yeah.
Bow.
You see, so it's a combination of, you know, putting the right parts in the right section, but also figuring out what effects you can throw on there to add interest. And like I had never used this Dawn Shimmers effect, right? But that's part of the experimentation process where like you drag stuff in, see what it does to the sound. Does it sound cool? Does it add something to it? And you figure out how to work it in. Because now this little music part is not the same standard stock sound that it came from. Now you're adding your sauce to it, basically. And you're adding movement to it because you're bringing the filters up and down. It's changing, it's dynamic. We're always looking to add dynamics to the track through movement, right? So it doesn't sound like one robotic like complete loop.
Mhm.
And if you were to listen to this whole piece right here soloed, there's movement in it now. See, it's like changing up.
Yeah, that's fucking nuts.
really care. Cause without some of them I wouldn't be here. And they all know how I feel. The suckers be like playing themselves to have mass appeal. Bow, 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 bow.
That little kick at the bottom is fire.
Yeah. Right? So you can have something like this. So that's kind of the process that I would go through if I was like arranging the track and doing all these types of things is I would, and you see, I try to keep things organized. I try to like look at what I'm doing with you can see the clear sections. And then it starts to make more sense, right? But I'm trying to make sure that I'm getting out of the way like all these little simple things like having the balance between the kick, bass, volume. Like I'm trying to do all those things in a certain step so that I don't have to do it all at once. If you do that as you go, then you can focus on the really more important pieces like, figuring out where the vocal goes, like what you do with the vocal. Like you could do the same thing that we did for this sound, you could do to the vocal. Like maybe in the vocal and the breakdown, you have something where like, okay, let's try this build and break preset. So maybe you can have something on the vocal where it's like doing this thing. You see, you can add all these effects to this. So.
But if I have to, I go all out with nobody. Yeah, that's right, cause I survive mad fights. And for my peeps, I truly care. Cause without some of them, I wouldn't be here. They all know how I feel. The suckers be like playing themselves to have mass appeal. Bow, 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 bow.
So you could add stuff like this. You can do beat tools. What is this thing? Let's see what that does.
But if I have to, I go all out with nobody. Yeah, that's right, since I survived that.
You see, you could add something like that. And it gives you a simple knob right here, dry wet. So you could just, so maybe you have the effect. You have the effect come in right here. It comes out. So you have it kind of like.
But if I have to, I go all out with nobody. Yeah, that's right, cause I survived mad fights. And for my peeps, I truly care. Cause without some of them, I wouldn't be here. And they all know how I feel. The suckers be like playing themselves to have mass appeal. Bow, 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 bow. But if I have to, I go all out with nobody. Yeah, that's right, cause I survived mad fights. And for my peeps, I truly care. Cause without some of them, I wouldn't be here. And they all know how I feel. The suckers be like playing themselves to have mass appeal. Bow, 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 bow. But if I have to,
Right, so as you start doing that to the full track to certain elements, it all starts to come alive. And
It
sometimes,
definitely sounds better than what I had.
well, and then sometimes you find these really cool presets. Like, we just found a couple of these where it's like, okay, these do something sick to the sound, and you can reuse these for other sounds. But it's just like instant ways to add magic and sauce to the tracks. So like this larger sky preset is really dope. It makes some like dope thing. We did something to that over here. And all it is just using the tools. Like I went into the Ableton browser and I went to audio effects and I kind of chose a category of stuff that I was looking for, like performance. I think I clicked on performance DJ,
Mhm.
and that gives you stuff that is cool when you're like DJing. So I went to audio effects rack and I had all these presets, but you could go to like a delay plugin too and just look and see what these presets show you in the delay. Look at how many presets there are for delay. So all these things give you like movement on the sounds. Like you could add this on vocals, you could add it on whatever. You could even add it to drums. So like let's say out of time, right? So maybe this does some crazy glitchy thing to the drums. So if I go here and I just solo the drums real quick, I'm gonna look at what this does. So this adds, so that adds a whole bunch of stuff, but it doesn't have control over the dry wet. So I want to find something where I could blend in. Yeah, so check this out. I could do that. Right? So that's kind of cool because you can have some little effect like that sneaking in there on the drums. So with the automation, I just make sure that I want to automate this little guy, and I just kind of have this right here, just a little bit. Automate that right there. Bro, endless. And look at how many presets there are here. Dude, there's a ton. So it's just you got to take that time to go in there, experiment, and just see what these do. And sometimes you just create some crazy combinations with this stuff. But you don't have to get too carried away with it. It's just like I'm just showing you ways that you could explore. Like when you're stuck on like, damn, I don't know what to do to this sound, right? You know, you kind of take the simple sound and start going through some of these effects racks and see what you can add to it that'll make it sound different, unique. And there's no rules to it. Like you can add some of those effects to anything. Like right now, I just added it to the drum rack just because in that breakdown, maybe it's cool that you have this little like tiny little effect that's changing the drums up a little bit in there. It's just adding like this little like panning kind of thing. And yeah, bro, that's really what it is. Let me make sure I save this for you.
Yeah,
Save.
definitely. I want to keep this project so I can like fuck around with it.
What did it say? Why does it say save as? What happened to this? I'll save live settings. Let me just save it to the desktop. Let me just save it to the desktop. Save. Yeah, bro. It's just like it's trying to break it down into these simple chunks to make it work, right? So I would use a reference track, or I would do the method that I was showing you here, where it's like you kind of it's easier for me because this little arrangement pattern I've seen in a lot of tracks and I know that it works. So you can follow the same one, or you could just use a reference track and map out the same thing. But this
Yeah,
usually works pretty well.
yeah. The like the way that you have the automation things, like that's probably going to be like my standardized go-to until I get like real familiar with.
Yeah, and bro, there's honestly, this is what a lot of producers do. So let's say if you have this standard in your template where you just, this is the arrangement thing you have set up, don't be afraid to use it every single time for all your tracks because what's going to happen is all your tracks also start to have like a consistent, you start creating your own sound basically, and that's what you want. Because I know a few producers like Nacho Scopa, like a couple of these guys, if you look at all their tracks on Rekordbox, dude, there's like 10 tracks in a row that they've released on different EPs, different labels. They all have the same arrangement. And you would never know by listening to the track, you're because they all have different sounds, but their arrangement template is the same.
Yeah, I normally like, like whenever I listen to like a track and shit like that, now that like I know like, the automation on top about like the taking away
Yeah.
the bass lines and stuff like that, like you can hear it in the background. It's like, okay, he has it here, and then at the 30-second mark, it drops and then the kicks hits, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So little shit like that. But let me ask you, you could put that as like a standardized, like as soon as you open up like Ableton?
Well, you would have to open this up in your computer and just delete everything that you don't want from it. And then if you go to the top and you hit set as default set, you can do that.
Mm,
So when you open this project up at home, just delete all these like MIDI, all these like clips.
mhm.
Just clean it all up, make sure it's all clean like this, and then just yeah, just save it as your default template.
Okay. And I did want to ask you because like I have a whole bunch of like sample packs and shit like that that I go through, but some of them don't load because I don't know if it's because I have no more like space on the side. I honestly I don't know how it like what the fuck it is. But I remember you were telling me that you have like a sample folder that all your samples are on.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah,
That
yeah.
like how do you do that? Because I opened up like a folder of my sample packs and shit like that. But that's like like that's the furthest I've gotten.
Yeah, so this, if you notice, I think we looked at this last time where I have an external drive right here, right? So my external drive, I have a samples folder where it has everything. All I did was in Ableton, I added that same folder to my left favorites thing. So inside this folder is all that same stuff. So you're
So
saying you can't see this stuff?
yeah, because I remember the last time you told me to open up a folder on my
Mm-hmm.
desktop.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So that's the
Is
first
that
that
is that where you have all the samples?
no, I have all of my samples in my external hard drive.
Okay, here, let's do this real quick. Let me just stop the recording thing so we can do that real quick.